Hello, and welcome to another episode of Jackson Talks Everybody with me, your host, Jackson Stone. And we're at my house, Everybody's Land, branded. Hashtag buy a t-shirt or don't, it's all good. But yeah, today I'm here with my friend Milan.
Hello.
And I told her before we started recording that I was just going to ask her basically about her whole life story, and she was going to talk for 100 straight minutes about only herself. And she shut down that idea pretty quick. So we're not going to do that. But we are going to start this episode basically how I start every episode. You said that you've watched a couple episodes before, so you know that I'm about to ask you a question that's very important, powerful, and impactful. So how are you doing, for real?
I am, I'm stressed, but I'm doing well.
You're stressed. What's got you stressed out?
I'm moving.
You're moving, that's right. Yeah, you told me you bought a house.
I did. So that's a pretty stressful experience. I had my fridge moved in today and then discovered that the outlet doesn't work. So now I have to get an electrician to come out. So I'm like, oh, the joys of owning a home. But yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Is this your first home?
It is.
You've been living in an apartment?
Yes.
Where do you stay? Arlington?
In
right?
Arlington. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Southwest Arlington.
How long have you been in Arlington?
I have been in Arlington for... recently I've been in Arlington for about 4 years. But I mean, I guess I technically graduated from around there. I went to Kennedale. And that's like right on the edge of Arlington.
That's high school?
Kennedale. Yeah, Kennedale was a city, and Kennedale High School.
Oh, it's close to Arlington.
It's like a little tiny city. Like 2 minutes on 287 and you've driven through Kennedale. But,
wow.
Yeah.
That's wild that like it's only 45 minutes from here and I have no idea that it exists. That's crazy, right?
It's a great area though. It's really nice.
So you bought a house?
Yes.
In Arlington?
In Arlington.
You're fired up?
I am. I'm really excited.
Just you?
Yes. Did a lot of painting, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
So speaking of your electrician problem, right? I bought this house. I'm trying to figure out all the lights. A few of them don't work. And I'm like, damn. Okay. I'll get an electrician out. And you can't see it on camera, or obviously you can't see it if you're just listening to audio, but by my front door there's 3 light switches. One's to the outside, one's in here, and then the other one just seemed like it wasn't anything. Mm-hmm. So I was like, damn, okay. And it was like in the living room, so I feel like I needed it to work. There was a few in the bathroom that didn't work, and I wasn't too worried about that. So there's this guy named Frankie Fisher. If you're an MPX fan, you know who Frankie Fisher is. If you're not, he's just a guy who owns his own electrician business, and I'm a friend of his. So I called him over, said, hey buddy, I got some things, some outlets that don't work in my new house. Can you come check them out? He brings his coworker with him. He got this whole gear, everything, the whole setup. They come in, they start checking the switches, plugs like a thing into the outlet, goes over to my wall, flicks the one up that wasn't used for anything. He said, okay, everything works, you're good, you just got to turn it on.
Oh, was it one of the ones that was for the outlet? Oh,
so yeah. All my outlets work once I turn the light switch on. And he was like, yeah, you probably could have just checked that yourself, but and then he wrote me a bill. And he was here for 10 minutes.
I have like 6 switches in my house right now, and I'm like,
you should try them.
I don't know what they do.
You should try them all.
Yeah.
Like plug your phone in, try it.
I would hope that doesn't.
Because I seemed,
But the fridge though?
I felt very.
Why would that be the outlet?
Yeah, probably not the fridge. I felt very dumb though. But I mean, it's good. It works now. So as you can see, we have light in the room.
So success.
Yeah. So major success. Nothing's happened. I've lived here since January. So that's good. What's today's date? November 12th.
November 12th, yes.
So this episode will drop in December, and it'll be the last episode of the year because I'm going to take like a 3-week break in December. So like a new podcast intro and new song that I got made. So This episode will be the final episode of 2020, if I'm scheduling that right. But I think that's cool because mostly we're going to talk about this, which is Experience Wrestling, which is if you follow me on social media, which I assume you do if you watch this podcast, you've seen me share all of this stuff about it. And this is the person who started it, the brains behind the operation. But we'll get to that.
One of the people.
Yeah, she's the brains behind the operation. There's a board of directors who are helping out, but her ideas and her thought and her hard work basically all started it off. So we'll get into that pretty deep. That's mostly what the episode will be about. But we want to get to know you, to know why you started it, like what's your passion behind it. So I know were you born and raised in Texas?
I was not.
Okay, so give us a little background. Not your whole life story, okay, just a little background.
Okay, well, military brat. So born in a military base in North Carolina. Moved around a lot, but ended up settling in Texas middle school and then pretty much stayed through here. So Texas is definitely home to me.
Arlington specifically, or where you talked about going to high school? Kennedale?
I would say just like the greater DFW area.
Sure.
That's all home.
Okay.
You know, I lived in Denton for a while. You know, there's some sweet moments there.
There's a piece of you there.
You know, Fort Worth, same thing. So, yeah, I would say everywhere.
Okay. And then, you went to college at UT Arlington? Did you spend all 4 years there?
Well, no. So initially, I actually went to university in Chicago. I was stationed out there.
Oh, this is the Bill Nye story. Yeah, she said that she knows Bill Nye.
I did not say that.
She said they're actually close homies.
Not at all.
He's going to be on the board of directors.
that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That would be pretty awesome.
Anyways, she doesn't know. But anyway, she'll tell you the story. Okay, go ahead.
So I actually lived in Chicago first. Went to Illinois Institute of Technology. I was actually there for aerospace engineering, which is completely different than what I ended up with.
Aerospace engineering.
Aerospace engineering.
How did you get, like, out of high school, you were like, that is what you want to be?
I wanted to be an astronaut. So
that's so cool.
Immediately after high school.
Wait, we can't brush past this, though. No, that's mad cool, though. Like, you just got interested in it when you were in high school, or did it's like someone, like, take you to a NASA museum, or like, what's the deal?
It started off with Star Trek as a kid.
Sweet.
As a little kid, I loved Star Trek. I was super obsessed with it. And then when I realized that, like, you could do that, and maybe not actually be in space like that, but you could contribute towards that happening one day, I was dead set on being there. You know, so I pretty much built everything I did throughout middle school and high school towards that goal. I joined the Air Force. Immediately after high school, I went in. That's how I ended up in Illinois. I was aircraft sheet metal maintenance mechanic, so I got to work on jet planes and things like that, which was pretty fun.
Wow.
I worked on F-16 fighter jets and C-130 carrier planes.
Oh.
Yeah, so I can weld. I know how to handle some metal. So
you could probably fix this fridge issue, no problem.
I can't do electrical. That's like I won't touch electrical.
So you can fix an aircraft.
I can build an aircraft. I just can't make it move.
That's
so
cool.
If you need all of, like, the internal stuff done, get someone else.
Yeah.
But I will build it for you. I can do that part.
Wow. Okay, so also, you said before we started recording that you didn't know if your story was interesting enough, and now I'm getting a little upset because everything so far that you said is like mad cool. So, anyways, keep going. Okay, so you're in the Air Force. You're building shit.
Yep, Air Force.
Just getting after it.
I am going to school out there for aerospace engineering, and I was the station manager for a radio station. I can't even remember why I decided I wanted to do that. I mean, I love music, you know, I love everything with it. I don't play anything with music. I don't create, but I love consuming and appreciating it. So I ended up becoming a station manager, and we just really wanted to get people to appreciate the radio again because no one really listened.
What year is this?
This was, oh man, now you're really making me think.
Yeah.
This had to be 2010.
Okay.
I definitely was not old enough to drink yet. So 2010.
Okay, so people are still listening to the radio for sure, because now it's kind of maybe they listen to like Sirius XM, you know, but not just like 106.1.
Probably, that's probably true. But it just so happened that Bill Nye was coming through to do a talk, and we hounded the heck out of, you know, administration, like, hey, can you guys please get him on our radio show? Can you at least ask him? And I'm not even sure how that conversation went, but, you know, in the end, you know, they ended up having like a little interview or whatever with him, and we got to see him and meet him and everything, and it was so cool. And of course, we all geeked out, so I feel like everyone who was in his presence was like, they grew up off of it.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. And like I said, I was at a school for aerospace engineering. The school I went to was pretty much all nerds. You know, they were all engineering students.
I think that's a positive
students.
term.
That's what we were. And so you can see like the level of geek out we probably had at having him on our campus.
Yeah.
And the talk was obviously amazing too. So.
Yeah. Well, Bill Nye's a fucking rock star.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Even me, someone who's not like super interested in like science, would be like, if Bill Nye walked in my house right now, I'd be like, this is cool. You know, I don't know why he would just show up, but
everything that comes out of his mouth is just amazing. Like, he explains things in such a way that your mind explodes, and I love it.
that's a good way to explain how good Bill Nye explains things.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how long were you in Chicago for then?
I was in Chicago for 3 years, and then
Thoughts on the city before we brush past it?
I love the food. I love the culture.
Yeah.
I hate the city. I could not wait to get back to Texas.
Why is that? What about it made you dislike it?
So I lived right outside of downtown.
Were you close to Wrigleyville or?
I was right outside of, yeah, actually.
Okay.
And there's not really many trees. And living in Texas for so long, you get used to seeing green things.
Sure.
There's not much green stuff.
Not in Chicago.
In Chicago.
Not in the city, especially.
Not in the city, no. And then people, I thought Texas drivers were bad. No. Chicago drivers are like 1,000,000 times worse. Yeah, it's really bad. But the food, I do miss the food. The food is amazing.
Food is good.
They have really great food. All the people I met out there are great. Amazing music. Some of the greatest venues I've ever gone to were out in Chicago. Some amazing shows.
You went to sweet shows there?
Yes, I fell in love with a lot of local bands out there. So Molehill, if you're into like indie rock, I would definitely recommend Molehill. They're amazing, and they're super awesome too. So they're really nice guys.
Nice. Oh, you met him.
We had them on the show a couple of times too.
So Bill Nye and Mohill.
Cobalt and Hired Guns. They're also another great local Chicago band. That's really cool. They make some really great music too.
Tight. Okay.
So that was Chicago.
So you spent 3 years there, and then you moved back to DFW.
I did. I moved back to Texas.
To change schools, or what happened?
I had enough of Chicago, so I begged for a transfer, and I got.
So you're still in aerospace engineering at this point?
Well, no, I wasn't in aerospace engineering anymore. Around that time was when they announced that they were shutting down the space program.
Oh.
And I went through a huge, I guess, crisis where I just didn't know what to do with myself anymore. Like, if I wanted to continue on with that degree, if I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to work for a space program.
Yeah.
In the end, I was just like, I don't think it's worth it if I may end up being unhappy doing something else. Because it's not space program stuff I don't really want.
That was your specific intent.
Exactly, that was it. So I kind of decided to go to my second love, which was history. And then that also kind of helped my decision to move back to Texas, because UT Arlington has a great, liberal arts program. So that was pretty easy decision.
Oh, do they? Are they known for that?
I wouldn't say known necessarily. Like, I don't know very many schools that are known for their liberal arts.
I don't either, but I thought maybe it was.
Most schools that have great liberal arts programs, they're overshadowed by whatever other great things they do. Like at UT Arlington, our nursing program and our engineering programs are top notch. Mm-hmm. So those usually overshadow everything else. But we do have great programs outside of that.
Yeah, my sister graduated from UT Arlington.
Awesome.
And she graduated with an engineering degree. I don't remember what specifically. I want to say it was civil engineering, but I don't know. But yeah, so UT Arlington's a great school. Okay, so you're there. You're at UT Arlington. You moved back to DFW.
Yes.
You changed your degree.
I changed my degree to history.
History.
Great choice.
You like history?
Love history.
Like, what's your favorite time in history?
So my specialization was ancient history.
History.
So it was pretty much, I focused on pre-Christian culture and pre-Christian religions. So like ancient Mesopotamia and things like that. So that was kind of my my little focus area.
And that gets you going. That gets you fired up.
I love it.
That's so cool. Okay. And then when you decided to switch to history, was there an end goal to like what kind of job you wanted to get, or where you wanted to like further your studies, or like where you wanted to take it?
Well, I had always said when I was little that if I wasn't an astronaut, I was going to be a librarian. So, I kind of had a dream at that point of working for the archives. Mm-hmm. Like that was my goal at that point. I ended up getting a summer internship. Well, it was technically for the full year internship at the National Archives. And I changed my mind pretty quickly on that. The job was not as, it wasn't as Indiana Jones as I was hoping.
So basically you said, so you wanted to be an astronaut because of Star Trek. And then you wanted to be a librarian because of Indiana Jones.
And The Librarians, because that's also an amazing show.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no, I get it. It's the guy, yeah. It's the same reason I wanted to be Batman. You know? Because at one point in my life, I really wanted to be in the CIA. And I was like, oh, it's like kind of like Batman. Or like James Bond. And I was like, oh, he's super cool. He drives cool cars. He like talks to women. And then he like kills people. And I was like, I thought that was cool. And I was like, now in my life, I'm like madly afraid of guns. I can't stand them. I don't like violence. And speaking multiple languages is like mad hard. And I'm like, and I'm not very secretive. Like I'm not very, like, I feel like, you always know I'm coming, you know what I mean? So that went away pretty quick.
Yeah.
But
same thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're Indiana Jones.
I get to do some pretty cool stuff now. I can definitely say that. I got lucky with my job now, and I 100% admit, like, I will say that I got super lucky, and I'm so grateful for that. But I knew at one point, like, I was kind of, lost for a couple of years where I was working, but it wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. I was just kind of doing it because I had to do it, kind of thing. But I knew that I wanted to get into academia, and I wanted it to be higher education, and it had to be at UTA. Like, I was just so passionate about that. Like, my dream job at that point was just getting into UTA. Yeah. And the library had a position for an events coordinator. And for the longest time, that's one of the things I had done was I coordinated weddings and large events and things like that. So I was like, okay, this is actually a great way for me to get in, coordinating educational events for the library. I had the experience. I used to teach for a while too. I've been trying to find where I fit for a while. And I think it took like a week of me being in that position for me to say, like, I'm going to be here until I retire. Yeah. And I tell my dean that all the time, and it's and I tell my boss Gretchen that I'm just like, I hope you guys realize I'm never leaving here. I'm gonna be one of those people who in our meeting, because in our regular meetings we'll do like a anniversary thing, and we'll have some work anniversaries that are like 56 years, and I'm like, I'm gonna be that person who's been here for 50 plus years. Well, maybe not 50, by then I'll want to retire, but you get the point. Yeah. I'm gonna be there forever.
So do you feel a deep sense of purpose with your job, or does it make you happy, or what about it specifically that you really love it?
I do feel a deep sense of purpose when it comes to my job, because I love feeling like I am imparting some sort of knowledge to whoever it is that's coming to one of our events or my classes or something like that, to a point where they have the confidence to go out and further build upon that skill. Most of the things that I create for the library are what we would call like those threshold level, like those easy to jump into type of skills. So I do a cooking workshop. Yeah. But the skills I teach in that are very introductory, so that you can go into it and then hopefully have that confidence to go into the kitchen yourself and build upon those skills. Or the building workshop, it's that same concept. I'm going to teach you how to build a bookshelf in the hopes that you're going to feel confident with those tools that you just used to go build something on your own. And that's kind of like the idea for everything that we do. And I absolutely love that. When our students come back to me and say, hey, I crocheted this, like, what do you think? And I'm like, whoa, you did that by yourself? Like when you went home or something? They're like, yeah, I'm like, that's awesome. Or, when I have a student show me a picture of a blanket that they sewed, after coming and learning how to sew a pillow. Like, that's amazing to me. And being a part of that, that's why I absolutely love what I do. And that's why I know I'm going to stay where I'm at. Yeah. My position may change a little bit, but like now I'm more in an administrative type of position. But, I still have a hand in that, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask if there's like room for advancement in your position, like, because I feel like you're someone, I don't know you too well, but we're getting to know each other better, which is really nice because we're working together and stuff, and now we have this conversation. But I feel like you're someone who doesn't want to just be at this like the same level. Like you want to stay at the same position at the same university, but you want to feel like you want to be progressing in some sort of way, or being challenged, mentally or emotionally, or like with what your job is, or trying to get more, I don't know, whatever the case may be. So is there more advancement for you to do, or is there room for growth? There's some different things.
There definitely is. My supervisor probably pushes me towards that growth more than what I want at times.
Sure.
When it started off, it was literally just me in our department doing experiential learning events. And experiential learning is pretty much just learning through doing. So instead of learning through a lecture, you actually have that hands-on experience.
It's the best way to learn. At least for me, it was the best way to learn.
Exactly. And we find that's the case for a lot of people. So we're trying to offer those opportunities as well as integrate that into courses. So more of our courses on campus are actually doing that within their curriculum. So that's awesome. But, I completely forgot what my point was before then. So
you're on a roll. Your supervisor is pushing you to be more. You're doing experiential learning, which everyone should do every day.
Everyone should do it
in their everyday lives.
But it started off with just me, and now I have a team of 2 full-time staff members and 4 students who I lead for events in our library. So we've grown exponentially in the last.
So you're a boss you're a boss in all your jobs.
I don't always love it, but
no.
I don't. Sometimes I really want to be the one actually in the event doing all that stuff. And now I'm stuck in meetings and putting out fires and talking to presidents and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
that's my life.
Okay. So a lot has happened in this year, right? A lot has happened in this year. Well, what's has your job's been pretty normal, or have things been different now that things have changed, via online classes or whatever the case may be, or with COVID or any of the things that have happened?
It has definitely been a crazy different year. UTA has done an amazing job though in how they have addressed the pandemic and everything. So I've never really had a moment where I felt uncomfortable or I felt like my job was going to be at risk or anything like that. So I'm very thankful for that part of it. But we have gone completely virtual, and it is a learning curve for my events.
Yeah.
I like to think that I do some amazing events.
Sure.
I like to think there's a reason why we expanded to what we are now.
Yeah, we're here to pump you up. Talk about yourself.
But I am not necessarily I don't like being on camera. It's a joke at work where when marketing comes by to take pictures for different things, if I realize they're coming, I'll magically have something else to do so that I'm not there.
Yeah.
And there was one time I even hid underneath the table really quickly, right before he took the shot. And he was like, really? And I was just I thought about it and realized I can get down quick enough. So I did, and it just happened. And with that comes I'm not.
Well, sorry for putting you on camera.
But you have to be good with a lot of that stuff when you're going virtual, being on camera, dealing with social media.
Yeah.
And it's a learning curve for me, and I'm having to get more comfortable with that. And it's taking 9 months for me to get to a point where I'm okay, all right, we're doing good now. We've got this. Our shows are not, falling apart on Facebook. So this is awesome. And now we have to do it for a whole nother semester. So.
Oh, one more semester, at least.
At least that's what we're anticipating. So at least that's what we're planning for.
It's very interesting. Very interesting year, I would say.
It has been a very interesting.
What do you think is something that you've learned over the last, I don't know, since April, with all the stuff that's happened?
I think I've learned so many things over this, and I think a lot of it is just having the time to reflect, have that self-reflection. Mm-hmm. Before I was a bee all over the place. I was always super busy. I never really had downtime. Mm-hmm. I never took time off. And then having that moment where I was forced to kind of be at home. I was working from home, but it was still a slower pace. I was able to really think through some things and just realize that how important patience was. How important it was to really listen to people and be empathetic, and not just listen to them to offer advice, but listen to them to actually get to know who they are. Because sometimes, you know, and I was very guilty of this. I don't do it so much anymore. At least I actively try not to. But when you listen, you are listening to what they're saying. You are listening to be empathetic, but you're listening for the purpose of being able to respond and not necessarily listening to understand them better so that you can respond better to them in the future. And it's so important to do that. And I didn't realize that until I actually slowed down and started thinking about how other people were responding to me because of that. Or does that make any sense?
100%.
Okay, awesome. I'm happy that makes sense to someone else.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, because so I'll make it personal, I guess. When I record these episodes, I tend to watch them back to make sure, you know, it sounds good. I didn't say anything that might get me canceled, because that just makes me very nervous, actually. Even though that's a whole other conversation. But anyways, just like if I were to have a wrestling match, I would watch it back to critique myself to try and get better. I do the same thing on the podcast. And I found myself like in the middle, like probably 75 in my head, like 75% through someone talking, I would have something to say. And so I would watch it and be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, they obviously have a full thought. You ask them a question, let them get the full thought out, and then think about it for a second, and then respond accordingly. And so I know what you mean, because I watch a lot of podcasts also. I'm not big on just listening to podcasts. I like to watch them like via YouTube. And a lot of the podcast hosts are always like, you know, not to cut you off. Mm-hmm. Well, why are you doing it? And so I think I've gotten better at that. So it's interesting that you bring that up, because like that's an important part of a conversation. You know, I think in today's world especially, conversations, like actual conversations, are like a big key factor to like heal the huge divide we have in our lives. You know, not that I have to like truly understand you, because I probably can't, because we grew up differently, right? White, black, there's all those things that are very apparent about us that are different. But if having a conversation with you allows me to understand that just because I didn't experience it doesn't mean it's not real, right? It doesn't mean I need to like totally understand you, because I probably never will. But at least I have a point of view, a point of reference, where like this person sees it this way. Cool. I should be more understanding and empathetic to that, but I see it this way, and now we can go on a path together.
Exactly.
I think, at least. So when you said experiential learning, I was like, oh, people should just do that every day in their lives. You can only really understand something if you experience it.
They do.
Yeah, they just don't think about it like that, right?
Exactly. That, and they don't reflect, and that's the part that I wish people did more of. Because if people, and this is something that I do now on a daily basis, like when the day's over, when I get home, after everything is done, I sit down and I just reflect on everything that happened during the day. Because you never know what lesson you potentially miss until you actually have a chance to sit down and think about it.
Right.
And, you know, there's always small things, and you never realize how important they can be as far as like pushing you on your path. And a good example of that would be, you know, I had a conversation with one of my students, and it was just a very generic conversation about, you know, how they've been handling the pandemic, you know, just, you know, cooking meals and things like that. And, you know, in the moment, I didn't really think anything of it. We're just talking about, you know, how they're doing. But it was when I got home and I did my self-reflection that I really thought about it, and I realized, like, hey, there's an opportunity here for us to build a greater connection with our students by putting something in place where they can actually have these conversations on a regular basis. And by sitting down and doing that and realizing that we had that deficit, I wouldn't have seen that deficit if I didn't reflect back on everything that had happened throughout the day. And now, you know, I think we are being a little bit more aware of how our students are handling certain things.
Yeah.
And we are speaking to them more. Like, we're actually having conversation with them rather than just being like, hey, did you do your job? We're actually talking to them about what they're doing, not like outside of work, if that makes sense. We love our students.
How interesting is that, though, right? Like, in a time where we're supposed to be distant from each other, we're actually connecting more. What do you think? What do you think about that? What do you think that means?
It goes back to that whole comment I was making about how before I feel like I was just a busy bee, just too fast. I think a lot of us have slowed down a little bit to where we're realizing that we need to make those connections.
Yeah.
At least that's what happened with me. Like once I slowed down, I realized I need to make more connections. And I feel like a lot of people are now reaching out, and that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're seeing how much we need each other.
Yes, very much so.
And it's so important.
Yeah, I think people are doing a lot more like self-observation and self-reflection. Like it's interesting, right? We'll go watch a movie. Like when we can go to the cinema, we'll go watch a movie. And after the movie, we'll talk about it. Mm-hmm. Did you like it? What did you like about it? But we tend not to do that in any other part of our lives. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, so that's what self-reflection is. Oh, I had a conversation with this person today. Did I like it? What did I not like about it? You know, it's the same thing you would do if you have a nice meal or a meal in general. If you didn't like it, you're not going to go back to it. But you reflect on that meal, and we do that. We don't do that in like the way more important parts of our life, you know?
And we should.
Right. Because it seems like, who does it really matter if I like that movie or not? No. But we ask ourselves that. But what does it really matter if I like this person? Or am I going to get along with them? Or like, what is hindering me from connecting with them? Or do I like my job? Or what can I do differently? These are all the same questions, just in a more like a deeper way. But yeah.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Like since doing that, I feel like my life has been much less chaotic.
Right.
You know, even if you don't know quite where you're going, you still have more of a direction. When you self-reflect, you kind of have a view of what's happening.
Right. Yeah, and not everything you self-reflect is like positive.
That's true.
Which is also important too.
Very
you know,
important, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, because like I talk about like self-love a lot, right? But self-love is not making excuses, and it's not being complacent, right? Self-love is like a deep act of discipline, which people don't understand, right? I'm being disciplined with myself. I'm loving myself because I have a deep responsibility to my future self, and that means talking about the things that aren't good, and are good as well. I'm doing the things that are good and continue to do those things. But what are the things that I lack in or need to get better in? That's an act of self-love as well. It's not making excuses or being complacent with your ideas or who you are. I mean, if you're totally 100% happy with where you're at, stay there. But there's very few people that are like in this position right here, right now. I'm 1,000% truly happy. Right.
And even so, you should always be striving to better yourself.
Exactly.
Right? And like, period. And that's that mindset that you need to have if you're trying to better yourself.
Exactly. What a perfect segue into your love for professional wrestling. Let's talk about that. Let's dive into that.
All right.
Let's go there.
So, my love for professional wrestling.
Yeah. When to start, how to begin, all of this regular cliche questions that every wrestling podcast has ever asked me in my whole life. But I'm asking you now, so it's different.
It is different. I was, I have a huge family. So
okay.
I have like a ton of cousins.
Sweet.
But in my age group, I was the only girl. So, of course, that just kind of meant that I was just like the biggest tomboy hanging out with all of my, my male cousins. And they were all huge wrestling fans. So I kind of just like naturally got into it with them. Mm-hmm. And before long, I think I was probably as obsessed, if not more obsessed with it as them. And it was always funny because when I say a kid, I'm probably like 7 or something like that, 6 or 7. And I would be trying to like have matches with them. And my parents would come in and be like, "No, Mom, you can't do that. Let the boys do that. You can't do that." And I'm just like, what? So I was always stuck being like the referee.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I was a dirty referee though.
Good. So, it's a good spot to be though. A lot of power there.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I felt like I got my power back since I couldn't actually be in the ring and in the action. Well, I mean, I guess I was still in the ring, but
right.
If I couldn't, be doing everything else with them, I at least was going to be controlling.
You control the environment. That's right.
So that's kind of where it started.
Was it WWE? You saw WWE?
It was WWE.
Who was your first wrestler you ever saw? You remember?
The first wrestler I ever saw. Oh man.
On TV.
On TV. I can't say who the first wrestler I ever saw, but I can say this is almost embarrassing to admit.
No shot. No shot.
But when I was younger, again that age range, I had the hugest crush on Kane. So back when he was like all masked.
That's great. We all love Kane.
But like, I told everyone I was going to marry Kane. Like I was like dead set. Kane was my man, mask and all. And everyone would just be like, "But you've never even seen his face." And I was like, "That's why I love it." And but yeah, so that's what I always remember is Kane. I absolutely love Mankind. And China was a huge favorite of mine.
Yeah.
And I think for that one, you know, there weren't a lot of women that I remembered watching on there that weren't over sexualized.
Yeah. Back then it was a lot.
So it was hard to find a female wrestler who you could kind of look up to and be like, okay, that's someone who could like kick your ass, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah.
There were very few, you know, women.
They just
like
got
that.
portrayed so poorly, you know.
Mm-hmm. It was always like something where it was just like, why is she being like that? Really, she gonna let him do that? And that was kind of like how I felt about a lot of them growing up. But yeah, that's where my love started. I fell out of it for a while in middle school and high school, of course, because then, you know, teenagers.
It wasn't as cool, yeah.
You know, it wasn't, I guess, well, it wasn't even that. I think I just kind of forgot about it. I got obsessed with other things.
Yeah,
you know,
Star Trek, Indiana Jones, being an astronaut.
Yeah, all of that stuff was happening.
That's mad cool stuff, though,
you know,
too.
I was a mad geek, so I was like super in the books.
Did you read comic books?
Yes, I did. I did everything you could possibly think of, but I was also surprisingly like, I wasn't like an uncool geek. I was a pretty cool geek because I was also an athlete. So
You sound like the coolest person.
Out.
You probably had all the people wanting to hang out with you.
I wouldn't say that. No, not really. I had a cool group.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a cool group. We were fun. We were fun kids. We'll go with that.
Okay, I'll stick with that.
We'll stick with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I fell out of it during that time period. And then it was actually when I was in Chicago in college. And I was flipping through the channels. And I remember that it was Sheamus who was on screen. And I was just like, fuck, is this giant, like, ginger looking all angry? And I realized it was wrestling. And I was, like, absolutely obsessed with him. And I was hooked. And after that, I was watching, like, every week again.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was back to being the crazy wrestling fan that I remembered myself being when I was younger. And, you know, that continued up until probably like last year when I was introduced to local wrestling here.
So you found independent professional wrestling.
I did. And, you know, my friends would always talk about it. But
In 2019, you found it.
I know, 2019. It took me so long. But I'd never been to a local show. None of my friends wanted to take me.
One of your friends likes indie wrestling?
Well, a lot of my friends do, but none of them would take me to shows because they always said, no, that's not the place for you. Like, you shouldn't. It's not your cup of tea.
Okay.
We shouldn't take you there.
Why do you think they said that?
I'm going to assume that it's because they didn't want, you know, me to feel uncomfortable or something at a show. Which I can understand. Because there have definitely been moments
where you felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I mean, I can definitely see that, especially at the age I was then. I probably would have been much more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now I'm at a point where that kind of stuff doesn't bother me nearly as much.
Sure.
So not as big of a deal.
Okay.
But you know, I finally got to a show because of my friend Savannah. She brought me with Savannah.
Yeah.
So
she's part of the Experience Wrestling.
Yes, she is. So they finally got me to a show, and I remember too watching that show. It was a VIP show.
Cool.
And I was kind of like, I was going into it kind of skeptical. You know, I was like, I don't really know what I'm gonna see here. Everyone keeps warning me that it's not gonna be like, you know, what you see on WWE. It's not gonna be like that. So don't get. They were telling me not to get my hopes up. So I was just like, okay, I won't get my hopes up. And as we're going through the matches, you know, I'm just like, okay, I'm feeling this. I can see what the difference is, but I'm enjoying this. And the moment where it completely switched for me was I can't even remember who else was in the match. That's so terrible. But it was a match with Barrett Brown.
Barrett Brown! Sick,
and I
he's the
remember
man.
when he first came out, I was just like, okay. Another guy, you know, I'd never seen him before, so I wasn't necessarily like interested or intrigued or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was when the match started, and like instantly you could see the difference from the other matches that I'd seen up to that point.
For sure.
And I was hooked. And I was like, all right, I'm absolutely coming to another.
So Barrett Brown got you
somewhere.
hooked.
Barrett Brown definitely got me hooked.
Yeah, he's a very good professional wrestler.
He is, and he's an amazing person. Outside of that too.
He is,
so absolutely. And then I think the next show I went to was actually a show where I saw you and Andy Dalton and a couple of other people,
Sure.
and that was kind of what continued like my obsession. I slowly built up a new list of people who I loved.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember the last time I watched a WWE show, to be honest. It doesn't intrigue me nearly as much now.
Okay, that's a beautiful. Okay, so I don't really know in terms of my audience what they watch more, indie wrestling or WWE wrestling. But I would say I don't know the numbers either. Maybe half are wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say. Well, I'm just throwing a number out there. So for those people, what would you say the difference between watching a WWE show and an independent professional wrestling show is?
The biggest thing that I took away from the independent shows was that there was much more character and there was much more. I'm not going to say that the stories were more developed because that wouldn't necessarily be true, but you felt it more. Like you were much more in tune with the people who were in the ring. I mean, that's not something that you don't get that same level of connectedness with WWE or even AEW now. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the fact that you guys are so involved outside of the ring, be it, during a show, before a show, or just on social media. And the way you guys kind of built that stuff up. And man, the way you guys interact with the audience is way different than what you would see, in mainstream. And I used to think, I used to always tell people who were talking about wrestling, it's better to watch wrestling on TV. And that was back when I was only WWE. Like I would go to shows when they came into town, but it was more so because I'm a fan, I'm gonna go. But I didn't enjoy the experience. It was.
Where'd you go, American Airlines Center?
Mm-hmm. So I went there a couple of times. And a few times when they were at UTA, on the UTA campus. At a College Park Center.
Oh, okay.
So, that's what I would always tell people. And then when I started going to the local shows, it was completely flipped. I mean, I definitely enjoy watching them on TV too, but I'd much rather be at a live local show. Like that environment is so different and it's so much better. So that for me, I think is like the main difference as far as like why I enjoy independent more than mainstream.
Yeah, I love independent professional wrestling. Obviously, that's what I do. And so if you've never been to a show live, an indie show live, you don't know where to start or where to go, or there's not a lot going on right now because of COVID, which is good because we're being safe and precautious about the virus and stuff like that. But there's some stuff happening every once in a while. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. I'll let you know because I'm going to be independent for probably the rest of my career because I want to be. It's important to me. It's important to me to change the culture of independent professional wrestling because we've gone through a lot, not only since I've been in wrestling and also in the last year, which is why we're going to talk about Experience Wrestling. So how did this come about? Give us a rundown, and then we'll get deeper into what kind of work we're doing and what's the goal behind it.
So back when I first discovered local wrestling, I was so intrigued. I couldn't stop talking about it at the library. Everyone was just like, "Oh man, Milan is a wrestling nut. This is crazy." And then I'm pretty sure everyone at the library at this point knows that I'm the wrestling fan. So our archivist reached out to me, or I think we had run into each other. She was like, "Hey, you love wrestling, right?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. Did you know that we have this collection, the Von Ericks collection here at the library?" I did not know this. So now I'm, going through all of the different things that we have in the library's collection. I'm super into it. And then she asked if I wanted to write an article to include with the collection about professional wrestling in the area. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, this is perfect for me. Absolutely, I want to do this. Yeah. But when I started the job, of course, I couldn't find anything that was considered academic resources. There wasn't any academic content available for me to use. So I started the whole Experience Wrestling project first to collect the oral histories, which of course I reached out to you for that as well to be involved in. And then maybe 2 months after the pandemic happened. So I didn't get too far into the project before everything happened.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it was pretty soon after. And then of course, right after that, more stuff happened. And all of the chaos. And it was kind of, I don't know, like, the project was already on hold. I knew that I wanted to do something. I just didn't know how I could possibly contribute to a community that I didn't really feel like I was a part of.
Sure.
And then I got a call from, I got a text from David Fuller. And he was like, hey, can I call you? It's really important. I just want to talk to you for a few minutes. And I was like, yeah, sure.
Have you met David before?
Yes.
Just doing the stuff that we did?
Yeah, so I initially met him, of course, when I was doing his oral history, and we've become really good friends since then. He's awesome. He can talk though. So our few-minute conversation, I think we're on the phone for like 2 hours.
Yeah, he gets when he gets going, he's on a roll.
But pretty much in that conversation, he was expressing to me about how he had been reading everything and he'd been reflecting on all the things that had been happening in the community, and he really felt like something should happen, but he knew that he wasn't the person to do it. And he said that he had thought of me. And some of the things that I do and my passion and respect for professional wrestling. And he was curious whether or not I was interested in potentially doing like a promotion or something like that.
So it started off as a promotion.
So that's what he had suggested to me. And we had kind of talked through it and everything like that. But ultimately, when everything was said and done, I realized that with my experience, sure, I could definitely put on a show. I run events, I've run shows, I've done things like that before, not wrestling, of course. But, I do feel like at least with the logistical side of it, I could manage something like that. But I felt like there was something more that I could contribute with my background. And, thinking through that, I started thinking about some of the different initiatives and efforts that I'm involved in on campus. I work with a lot of different multicultural groups. I work on I'm on multiple different DEI committees that actually oversee some of the different policies.
What does that stand for?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you. I know what it means,
yes.
But
we'll talk about that a lot.
Those three words are very important.
So I'm on a lot of committees, across campus for that, and I've always been an advocate for all types of things. And I wanted to do that for wrestling, and I was like, I've done this before. I've been there. Why not use these skills that I have to at least help our community? Because that's where I was thinking initially, was just helping some of the local promotions create some EDI policies, maybe help them with some training, and then of course just help people get into the industry so that we could make sure that we had a diverse population.
And while this was happening, right, the speaking out movement was going on, right?
Exactly.
And so this is something that was, personal to you, as some of your friends were going through it. You were going through it, right? We don't have to get into that. But I was going through it, as everyone who listens to this podcast knows. So that had a lot to do with it, I believe.
Yes, it definitely did.
And then everything else that was going on in the world too,
in the
right?
world too, yeah.
Protests and...
Yeah, there was definitely, I feel like this was the year that the world was telling us it's time for change.
Fuck yeah.
We're tired of you. I'm tired of you not doing something, so I'm going to force you to see this.
Absolutely.
Because time after time, everything that keeps happening is just saying we need to do things differently.
Right.
But that means that we need to actively do things differently and not just say we're going to do them.
Yeah.
And that's something, I think that's the hard part for a lot of people. Knowing, not necessarily doing something, but knowing where to start.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that was kind of my problem initially. But again, during the pandemic, I've been doing this self-reflection thing a lot, and that helped me go get through this, kind of think about where I fit within the community. And I told myself I want to be the bridge. That was kind of what I got to. And it was because of, again, a conversation with Fuller where he commented to me that there was one owner who he had never spoken to, never had a really good relationship with, until I had asked them to sit on a panel. And then that was like the first time they'd actively spoken while trying to avoid each other all of those years.
Wow.
And that meant something to me, because it meant that despite the fact that I thought that I wasn't finding my place in the community, I was gaining the respect of people to the point where they were willing to be in that situation. Because I never thought about it. I never thought, like, that never occurred to me until he said, like, hey, this is a situation there, but because it was you, we were okay with it. And now we're talking.
That's amazing.
And I want to continue that, because I feel like if our promotions and some of our wrestlers talked a little bit more, we wouldn't have nearly as many issues as we have. And again, it goes back to not just listening to what they're saying, but really listening and figuring out what the core of the issue is and finding a solution to that. And I'm hoping that we can help with that. But then again, also just do positive things like, raising awareness around...
Wait, before you go.
Okay.
We got to put everything together now. So you decided no against the promotion. You thought about all the work you're doing with your actual job.
Yes.
And how you're creating diverse, equity, inclusive stuff.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, everything that's happening in wrestling, I can take these things and put them into wrestling, but not in a promotion sense, but in more of an organizational sense. And then so that's the route you went.
Yes. So, I mean, at some point, there are plans, which, you've seen our actual long-term goal plans and everything to, be able to host shows. But those, of course, are meant to be learning opportunities.
Yeah.
For students who may have never even thought of using wrestling as a career choice for them.
Right.
So maybe they're, maybe they're going to school for videography or something like that. Maybe they're interested in doing something like that.
For
and
sure.
Giving them that opportunity to run a show alongside professionals could pique their interest. And so that's what I'm hoping for from that, but not in the traditional sense of like what I guess the goal would be for a promotion.
Yeah, I think it's more sponsoring an event, I would call, than running a promotion. Because there's a problem in indie wrestling that we only want people in indie wrestling who are like a part of wrestling, right? There's like this weird paradigm about that we got to keep people in the business and like you got to keep everything tight, and that's horseshit, right? Because that created the issues that we had when people were keeping secrets for bad people and doing bad things, and that's like this weird paradigm of like keep everything close to your chest. But if we had people on the outside who had real business acumen or real event planners, none of this stuff, I mean, obviously it would still happen because there's still bad people, and obviously bad things happen with other businesses too, but I'm saying overall it would be cleaner and better, and the shows would be more professional, people would get paid better on time, there'd be there's just be more things in practice that were not like, oh, this just happened, it is what it is, it's just wrestling, like I can't stand that no, why are you not getting paid? It's just wrestling, man, No, you just put in real work. If you worked at Sonic and you put in 15 hours and they're just like, sorry man, just Sonic, no one would take that. That's like that doesn't happen. And so I'm getting real passionate, but and so so like the idea of like bringing in people who have their background isn't wrestling, but their background is things that are actually like that we want to do in wrestling. We want to run shows. It's an event. We want to film them. So that's videographers. There's graphics. There's, all of these things that go into running a wrestling show, which makes running a wrestling show really cool and unique. But if you can bring outside people in who then eventually find a passion for wrestling and see like the art behind it and creating cool video packages and a business plan. And so, so that's okay. That's where you come in. That's where you fit in the community,
exactly.
By the way.
That's where I feel I fit in the community.
So your purpose is big.
I hope so. I hope that we're going to do some big things. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So I guess there's like a lot of moving parts. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we're hoping to accomplish with that. But in the end, the ultimate goal, of course, is just creating a diverse and equitable wrestling community.
Yeah.
An inclusive wrestling community.
For sure.
And I'm excited for that because that's something that it definitely deserves. And I didn't realize until I started doing this project how badly it needed it.
Yeah.
So that's crazy as fan. And that's something that I feel is so different to other, and like if you want to use NBA as an example.
Yeah.
You're very aware of what's going on within the NBA usually. Like there's all kind of people talking about the ins and outs of that. That's not the case with wrestling.
Yeah.
Unless you know someone who's actually in it. And I don't think it should be that way, because if it weren't that way, then somebody would have already made an outcry a little bit sooner about some things. Mm-hmm. It just makes me a little sad, I guess.
It makes me very sad.
You see it and you just know that it could have been different.
Yeah.
But now
we haven't.
Make things different.
The parts that I'm very excited about what we're doing is, one, having basically a support system for people. A support system for people who are just starting to get into wrestling. You know, having a mentor. I love the mentorship program.
Yes.
Because people need that when they're getting into wrestling. They need that when they're getting into any kind of new field of life. They should have someone who has their back. Someone who's going to say, this is right, this is wrong. This is how you should value yourself, or what this is, or what that isn't. That's important, especially since there is still pro wrestling trainers out there who aren't good people, because they haven't been outed or whatever the case may be. They're still out there. There's always going to be bad people. We can't, I wish we could rid all of those people and get them help and figure that out so they could be rehabilitated and be better. But most people don't want to make that choice. So the mentorship program is awesome.
Yes, that's going to be a great one.
And the relief fund is something I'm very interested in, because I think everyone knows that when you work for, we'll just say WWE, a wrestling company, that it's not great, right? It's not great. Yes, you get a paycheck. Yes, it's a constant salary. Yes, you're on a bigger platform. But the reason people take it off leaving the indies, in my personal opinion, no one else feels this way because this is just me, but is that on the indies, there's no security, right? You don't know when you're getting paid. If I get hurt, I don't wrestle. All of these things. And so when you get the contract, the first contract that you get, you take it. Because it's like, okay, now I can support my family. I get a guaranteed money. I get a bigger platform. So in case something does happen, I can maybe do something outside of it. So the goal, my intention with the relief fund is that obviously we might be able to get enough money where we can pay you 100% of what you made if you got injured, which would be awesome.
That would be.
But the idea is that we can help support you if something does happen. And so that we can make being an independent professional wrestler more safe, more secure, and it allows you, what's so beautiful about indie wrestling is it allows you to create a freedom. Mm-hmm. Like if I was working for another big corporation, I wouldn't be able to do all of the stuff that I'm doing outside of being an indie pro wrestler. And as you guys know, that's the important part of my life, right? You are loved, all these things, right? And now experience wrestling. And so the relief fund, being able to set up something that's in place for wrestlers when something happens. Someone will break their arm. Someone will tear their ACL, get a busted nose, right? Get a flat tire on the way to a show. These things are all inevitable, especially in the environment that we're in, right? Very physical environment, a lot of roads traveled. These things are going to happen. We're going to get in an accident, sadly. We're going to have a blown tire. We're going to get injured. And so if there's things set up in place to help recoup those losses, not fully, but a little bit, kind of like when you get like in a normal world, I shouldn't say normal world, it's a bad word, but say before COVID, when you went on unemployment, you got a percentage of what you normally would make to help keep you afloat. That's the idea with the relief fund. That's what the fundraisers are for. And then just trying to make wrestling more safe and secure so that people with kids feel comfortable bringing their kids to a show in front of wrestlers, and that everyone in wrestling gets the same equal opportunity, right? Equal opportunities don't mean equal outcomes, but they do mean that everyone is getting the same chance, right?
Exactly. Because
if I take a slice out of the pie, I'm not taking from your piece because the pie is big enough for everybody, right? And so I don't know if I said that in a way that makes sense, but. And then also on top of that, because there's to be very frank, there's way too many suicides in pro wrestling.
Really?
There's been 3 that I know of in the last 3 months.
Wow.
And so the mental toll of being a pro wrestler, I think, is a lot deeper than the physical toll. And so with the work that I'm doing with You Are Loved, I would We're going to partner obviously together because you are loved. There's no other people around. It's just me. so whatever. But I can bring those mental health services and those support groups to wrestling, so we can be, again, the idea is more open and honest conversation, trying to figure out who I am when I present my pro wrestling character on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but also being able to separate that from who I am Monday to Thursday when I'm with my kids or I'm at home, and we don't have to get lost in that translation. And that, I think that's what causes kind of the identity crisis, which then causes the deep mental health struggles, along with just like everyday life, right? Mm-hmm. Long trips, not being away from your family, the sacrifice, low pay, very grueling business, a lot of failure, which takes a deep toll on anyone's mental health. So if we have all of these services in place, not to say we're going to be perfect, not to say we're going to be able to help everybody, because that's impossible, but there at least be something in place to help us make the best environment and the most thriving environment possible. So if you have any more to say off that. I said a lot.
You did. So I guess to tag on to that, we're talking about support and being there for everyone. We do have, which of course, I guess this is our first time actually announcing it, but we do have a report line. So if you have an issue or if you've seen something, say it, because unless you say something, no one is going to be able to address it. And that doesn't mean that, we're out to get anyone in trouble, because that's never the goal. The goal is to have conversations around things, but unless you tell us or tell someone that there needs to be a conversation around a topic, we can't initiate those. And it can be done anonymously. If you would like that option, you can definitely do that. But the other great thing about it is if you do decide to report, there is an option on there to speak to one of the board members. And then you could be connected with one of us if you want to then be connected to maybe some mental health services. So we're here to help the community as best as we can. And I think it kind of goes back to just accountability. Having someone out there saying on the outside, we're watching out for the community, because it's not we're policing or anything weird like that. We're just trying to get everyone talking so that we can have a safer community,
right? And
one that everyone deserves to be in, what everyone wants it to be, what I dream of it to be, because oh my gosh, I love the community. Everyone I've met so far has been absolutely phenomenal, and that's from professionals to fans. Everyone is so loving, so giving. So that there's so much amazing potential there, and that's something that I don't see in a lot of other athletic communities or maybe theater. You see it a little bit in theater, but I don't see that in many other places.
Right. Yeah. There's a close bond. There's a close knit bond, and yeah.
So what other than the things that you've mentioned, the report line, we have a fairly small board right now. We have some great people who are sitting on that board, but we are looking for individuals who want to.
Who are they? Who are those people on our board?
So the two of us is obviously, and then there's also Savannah, who is a fan. She acts as our photographer for events once we are able to be places again. We have Solo Darling, who is absolutely amazing. If you have not seen her, I spent probably a little bit too much time just watching.
You watch a bunch of her matches?
Yeah, I just watched it.
She's a badass.
To the point where I watched a bunch of her matches and then I texted her and I was just like, I love you so much, you're so amazing. And she was just like, thank you so much. And I was like, and we were just being very emotional about how amazing she was. But she's
good, and she's
absolutely awesome.
She's incredible.
So please follow her. So we also have Jessica Gamble, who is another fan. She was one of our original members. And then it's late. We have one more individual on our board. We have Veronica. I don't know how to say her last name though, so I don't want to butcher it. Do you know how to say her last name?
We totally botched this for her, huh?
I'm gonna spell it, and then you all can interpret how to pronounce the last name. And I apologize, but I don't like saying like my name is odd.
Milan?
Most people say my name wrong, so I feel for people. So I really hate saying other people's names wrong. But Veronica, Brazier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then you can try my real last name.
I've already told myself I will never. Whenever I see it, I'm just like, my name is forever just Jackson Stone. So
It's easy. That's easy, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's easy.
We'll skip the real Jewish last name. Yeah.
So that's our board.
That's our board.
We do have a community advisory board as well. Our community advisory board, that's the board that monitors our report line. And that is a board that we are actively trying to recruit for. So if you are passionate about making change in professional wrestling, you're more than welcome to go to our website, experiencewrestling.com, and then you can apply to join our team. And there's other things that you can volunteer to join with if you're interested in being a historian. And actually, continuing collecting those histories. We're doing that. We're always looking for
mentors.
Mentors, absolutely. We definitely need mentors. There's been some great response to that, so I'm really happy about the list that we have so far.
Oh, we got a good one?
We do. Yeah, we have a good list going.
Good.
We have some amazing people on that list, so I'm really looking forward to when we get to the point where we can actually start connecting our mentors with some new people in the industry. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then if you're really savvy with social media or technology, I would love.
Yeah, we could use a good graphic designer who would like to help us make some graphics.
That would be
for Instagram.
That would be awesome.
Instagram specifically.
That's not my forte. So
not mine either.
Not very good at it, but we've been trying. And you mentioned our fundraiser, so the first fundraiser that we're doing is our push-up-a-thon.
What day is that?
So it's going, you can buy tickets all throughout this month, but the week December 1st through December 5th, so the first week of December is when the push-ups will take place on social media.
This episode will come out on December 5th.
So that means you need to go and watch the push-ups. Oh no, they'll already be done.
Yeah, which would be perfect.
But still, go back and watch the push-ups so you can see him do a ton of push-ups.
Yeah.
Because
they'll see all the push-ups and they'll be like, what is this great company? And then the episode will come out and they'll be like, oh, this is what it is.
He has a lot of push-ups.
I do have a lot, like 200 or...
Whenever someone asks me like, oh, you're doing this nonprofit thing, right? Let me support you. Who should I buy tickets for? I'm like, Piper Jackson. So,
bruh.
Yeah, so you got quite a few.
Do I have more than 200?
Not yet.
Okay.
But you're about to be though. We're only like mid-month. By the time
That's
we get
true.
to
We have another month left. Basically, like 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah, just about, yeah. So I'm pretty sure
cool.
By the end of the month, you'll have at least 2.
Well, I'm tapping out.
You're not supposed to tap out.
I can get like 150 in.
No, you have to get all of your push-ups.
Like, do I have to keep
You're
going?
You're already over 150.
Do I have to keep going, or I could take a break in between?
You have to keep going.
I just nonstop?
Yeah. Wait, did we need to change those rules?
I need to go to the gym.
Okay, you all approved the rules.
No, I didn't. I just thought I had to do push-ups. I didn't know it was like a continuous basis.
I sent it to you all. See, that's why you guys should like read all of it.
I can't like rest for a second.
See, that was in the original one. We actually had it to where you could have, I think, 2 like 15-second breaks or something. And then someone said, "Oh, that's too easy. Like, you can't do that." So I took it out, and I even asked, like, "Hey, I'm changing this."
I'm sure you did. Yeah, you did
and
for sure.
And no one said anything.
No, that's on me. That's on me. That's on me. I botched that. That's okay.
So that's working out in my favor because now we get to watch you struggle, and I feel like next time, you'll be prepared for 300 push-ups.
I'm ready to go. Like, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to go. I'm going to the gym right after this, but I'm only going to just do push-ups for an hour and a half.
To prepare yourself.
And when I can't lift my arms to drive myself home, I'll call you to drive 45 minutes back from Arlington and take me home. Because this is on you. Okay?
You have to be ready. They're expecting you to get all of these push-ups in.
Okay, well, I wear my push-up attire. And
your push-up attire.
Yeah, like some like tight singlets, so like my body stays compact, like they do at those weightlifting competitions. And I'll for sure be wearing my Crocs, but I'll put the activity strap down, so that nothing gets messed up.
You'll be okay.
I'm excited. Anything else we want to add?
So we also have Bryson Scott Reggie Lincoln, Barrett Brown, and Solo Darling, of course, participating
For the push-ups.
For the push-ups.
Sweet.
And everyone is starting to get some decent push-ups, and you're definitely in the lead.
I'm in the lead for sure. People love me. I think that's why they keep buying them.
But it'll be fun. It'll be a good time. I'm not sure what or when our next fundraiser will be for sure.
Yeah.
But once we find that out, we'll definitely share that information. But you can always donate to Experience Wrestling if you would like to do so.
That's right.
And it will go to our relief fund
for your favorite wrestlers, in case something inevitably happens to them, and we can take care of them. And it's happening right now, right? We've seen there was no shows for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And for an independent contractor who can't file for unemployment, that's a difficult, and all you got was one little stimulus check. Some people didn't even get that. So that's a very difficult time, right? And then at a time where a lot of people lost their jobs, you're trying to sell merchandise to people who also lost their jobs, and you're trying to be conscious of other people as well as trying to put food on your table. So it's an incredibly difficult time. It's getting a little bit better now, but some states are going to go back into lockdown. Not sure I don't know what will happen by the time this comes out, but President Joe Biden might do that, and if he thinks it's best for our country, whatever the case may be. So whatever it is, there's going to be independent contractors affected. And so that relief fund is kind of the best way to support them, or buy a t-shirt if you can, if you're able. But it's a tough time for everyone. That's why support is important.
So one question that may help people when they're thinking about donating to us, like, what is the cost difference normally when, say, you're buying a t-shirt? Like, how does that normally work compared to if you donate something, you know that every cent of that is going to be going towards
right.
a wrestler. But obviously if you buy a shirt, that's not necessarily
so if you buy a shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees from a wrestler, they get $7 to $8.
Okay.
If you buy a shirt, most wrestlers nowadays have a website. So if you go to my website and you buy a t-shirt, that t-shirt costs me, depending on the design, $6 to $11 to make. We'll say it costs me $8 to make. The shirt's $25. Whatever that math is.
So basically buy from their website.
So the best is to buy from their website. Some don't have that because it's easier to do Pro Wrestling Tees, right? Because they cover the shipping and handling and everything. But there's more, the wrestler directly gets more if you go through their website. Because usually people buy the shirts beforehand, so that cost has already been kind of documented, and then all the rest goes to the shirt and stuff. And there's usually more cooler stuff on the website, and a lot of wrestlers now have Patreons or OnlyFans, which is another way to kind of directly support them.
To directly support them, yes.
And if you are following a female wrestler and they have an OnlyFans and they specifically say that they don't do nudes, please don't ask them. It's very inappropriate. Because OnlyFans doesn't just mean, this is a pornographic website. No, it's just another way to create deeper access and have a little bit more freedom with your posts on OnlyFans. Same as Patreon. There's no tiers on OnlyFans. But the OnlyFans, the person who's posting it, they're posting directly what they want to share and what they're comfortable sharing. So don't ask for things that they're not sharing or not comfortable sharing. That's rude and it's not welcomed. You don't have, anyways.
That was very interesting.
What?
All of that. I'm learning new things. That's great.
Yeah. I have a Patreon if you want to sign up for it. But whatever.
What do you have in your Patreon?
It's just tiers of connection to me. A lot of the money, depending on what level you go, some goes to You Are Loved. You get a free shirt and a video every month. Another tier is a Zoom call with you and the other Patreons. Another one is a 1 hour Skype call. A lot has to do with my life coaching business. So it's just another way for people to get that if one is more affordable than the other or whatever the case may be.
That's awesome.
But I'm gonna ask you one last question.
Okay.
And then we're gonna shut it down.
Okay.
what is your view on cancel culture? Go.
That question, really?
It's important.
So, I am firmly of the belief that people do bad things, people do dumb things, people make mistakes. But it's not my place to judge that. So I'm not going to cancel someone for something that they did, especially if I don't understand what's happening in their life, because there's no telling like how they responded to that, if they've had some moment of enlightenment and now some other type of person or whatever. So when you talk about like canceling somebody for something that they said, especially like I don't know, it kind of bothers me. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm not on board with the whole cancel culture thing. I think it's kind of it's a very narrow field of vision.
Very narrow field of vision. That's well said. That's well put.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way that I can articulate that.
Yeah. Very narrow field. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a tough one.
No, it's good. You're right. Because we want to cancel someone. We want to cast them out. And then what? They're just going to go into another group or society and do the exact same thing. So we're not giving them a chance to heal and grow, right? I understand there should be repercussions for actions, right? There definitely should be. That's why the speaking out movement happened, right? That's why we can't allow these people back at our shows or in our communities, right? That's the repercussion for their actions.
Yes.
But they're not just like dead, right? They're still human beings. They're still people who deserve to heal. They still deserve rehabilitation. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. It's a narrow-minded view.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And maybe it's the historian in me, but one of the things that always bothered me, or at least has bothered me over the last year, is that when everything happens, people have tried to either erase or discount history, or like what either the individual has already done or something like that. And I really think you have to kind of take that. You have to take every part of that and look at it a little bit differently. It's complicated. I'm just going to leave it at it's complicated.
It's very complicated.
It's really complicated because it depends on the situation, of course, and what happened.
100%.
So you have to kind of look at each one through its own individual lens.
Yes.
But the point is that you can't go into it and just be like, no, you're done. Like,
that's so right. You're so right. Every situation is different. You can't look at each situation exactly the same as you did before. You have to give it the time and the space and the effort to understand it. And yes.
See, yeah.
See, I knew you knew what you were talking about. Okay. This was a great episode, actually.
I had fun. This was awesome.
This is a great episode. A lot of stuff people are going to learn about you, about our organization.
Yes, that's the good part.
We'll definitely clip this portion and just put it on Experience Wrestling social medias when it comes out. What's the website, Twitter, and Instagram, so people can follow for Experience Wrestling?
For Experience Wrestling?
Unless you want to put out yours, but I feel like you don't.
You guys don't need to follow me. Not unless you want to see a lot of really random cosplay. So
yes, people in wrestling want to see that. That's cool.
So everything. Well, Experience Wrestling is going to be our Facebook, and then the Twitter and Instagram are at XP Wrestling, right?
Give your phone.
You're the one who's supposed to be in charge of our Twitter. Shouldn't you know our Twitter?
I should.
Our Twitter one. I guess I don't have my phone. I do.
Stand by.
He's making me look it up because he doesn't remember.
Stand by. I've like 4 Twitter accounts. Okay, it's a lot.
So it's at EXP_wrestling.
Sweet.
That is our Twitter,
Instagram, and website.
Yeah.
Cool. Closing thoughts, closing remarks.
Share everything. That's my closing thought. Share everything. Okay. I get so sad when I find out about great things that are happening like super, super late because we're not good about talking about the amazing things that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm really bad about it too. Like if I do something great in the world or in my life, I don't necessarily share it. Like share it. Like share it with everyone. Let everyone else share it, because we all need to know how amazing we all are. I think that's important. We forget that.
Let's celebrate each other. And on that note, that's it for today's episode. Thank you for watching. As always, appreciate you. If you like this episode or any episode you've ever watched, please share it with a friend, your neighbor, your peer, your colleague, your dog, your cat. Go to Apple, review it, subscribe to the YouTube, anything that happens. And hopefully one day a coffee company in Dallas will sponsor this podcast, and it'll be super cool. Other than that, I love you all. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Good night.